Hello, this is Ty Anderson for Add-in Express. In this video, I'll provide you with a short overview and a quick demo of what's known as Outlook Context Sensitivity. Outlook Context Sensitivity is the ability to hide and display user interface elements based upon the Outlook context. The user interface elements are things like command bars or toolbars, toolbar controls, ribbon tab controls, and advanced form regions. Now, the context is really, if you're looking at my Outlook 2010 window here, the context, it varies based upon what the user's doing inside of Outlook. Whereas if I have my inbox folder as my current folder, we'll see that the home tab displays primarily items that allow me to work with email. If I move to the calendar, then the home tab on the ribbon changes for buttons and commands that allow me to work with my calendar and new calendar types. And that works as well for contacts and tasks, etc. This idea of context also works, say I do a new task inside of the inspector window where we see the commands primarily targeted towards dealing with tasks. And again, that works as we change context, say to contacts. If I were to click new contact, we'll see that again the ribbon is contextually displaying commands that are related to my contacts. So with Add-in Express, we can take advantage of Outlook context sensitivity and display advanced form regions or ribbon tabs and toolbars, things like that, based upon what the user's doing. And so whatever business rules that we have for our add-in, we can help the user by switching user interface elements that are relevant to what they are doing at the moment. Now that I've explained what it is, I'm going to go ahead and close Outlook 2010. And you'll see here that I have Visual Studio 2010 already open. And what we'll do is I'll create just an Add-in Express project that targets Microsoft Outlook 2010. And I'll walk you through some of these common elements from creating and customizing a ribbon along with its own set of controls on that ribbon, and then changing its context of where it works, and I'll demonstrate that. And then we'll also work with advanced form regions, and I'll move in and out of the code or Visual Studio and then back into a runtime demo so you can see that how changes that we make in Visual Studio inside of the designers affect the ultimate solution running inside of Outlook. And then we'll also build some command bars and command bar controls, and I'll show how those work inside of older versions of Outlook as well. I'll start by saying File, New, Project, and we'll see in the installed templates where the ADX.com add-in resides, which is under Other Project Types, Extensibility. And I will call this project Context Sensitivity. Say OK. And in the new COM add-in wizard, I will select Visual C#, and I'll go ahead and support all Office versions, Office 2000 and up. Now for our supported application, I just want Microsoft Outlook in this case. I'll click Next. And strong name key, I'll take Generate New, that's fine. And now Visual Studio has created my project, and the add-in module, we see it inside of Code View, but I will go ahead and select it inside of the Solution Explorer and click the View Designer button. And then that'll bring us into the ADX Designer, which will allow us to begin to drop Outlook UI elements onto the designer and then configure them. I want to start with the newest stuff, so Outlook 2010, and some of this stuff even is applicable to Outlook 2007. But let's start out by building a custom ribbon. And if we look at the toolbar up here in our add-in module, we'll see that there is the Add an ADX Ribbon tab. And so that's what I want to do. I'll click that button. We see the ADX Ribbon tab, and down below we'll see the Visual Designer related to it, where we can select the object that we want, and we'll see the visual representation of it here, but then we'll also see the controls light up that we can add to the ribbon. In this case, I have really just one choice, which is the ribbon group. Now, if I select the ribbon group, we see all the other available controls light up, and they're now available. And so I'll add an ADX ribbon button. I also need to make my window over here larger so we can work with things. For this ribbon, just quickly, I'm not going to make a big deal of what goes on here, but I just want to make the size of the button larger. and we will change its caption to sample button. Okay, so what I want to do, oh, and also too, I'll change the caption for it to sample group. Okay, now back in the Visual Designer, I want to select the ADX ribbon tab, and I want to change its caption to context sensitivity. That's great. Make the properties even a little bit larger. So when we're dealing with context sensitivity, defining context in the sense of a ribbon tab, it really comes down to two things. One, which ribbons do we want the ribbon to be a part of? Do we want it, or where do we want it to show? In this case, inside of Outlook, we have Outlook appointments, contacts, distribution lists, the Explorer, the journal, on and on and on. And the defaults are mail read and mail compose. So this tab on the ribbon will display in those contexts. I can add to it pretty quickly just by checking off which ones I want, like Outlook Contact, Outlook Contact, and maybe, who knows, Outlook Appointment, something like that. For our demo here, I just want those three, and I'll minimize there. Then we can compile the application here by saying, go into the build menu and saying build solution, and we should be able to see then our custom ribbon display when we're looking at mail items and as well as contact items. Also, real quick, I need to register the ADX project. There we go. So now it'll run when we run Outlook. So if I were to open up an email, we'll see the context sensitivity with our group and our sample button. Also, too, if I did a new email, we'll see the context sensitivity. And if I move over to contacts and say I did a new contact, we would see Outlook context sensitivity as a tab. And if I were to move to the calendar and click on new appointment, then we wouldn't see it. So real quickly, just with a little bit of pointing and clicking inside of Visual Studio, we have some context sensitivity. Now, for a ribbon, you might be saying, well, how do I have it show inside of the main window? We go back to the ribbons and we'll enable the Outlook Explorer ribbon. So again, I'll say build solution, and since I've already registered it, I don't need to register it again. So now that I've succeeded, we'll open up Outlook once again. And now we see that context sensitivity is available inside of the Outlook Explorer window. Now another feature with the tabs is, I have it selected, but if we look in the properties, we have this property called context. And just out of curiosity, let's click it, and we see all these different context-sensitive ribbons that are throughout all the applications that we have. They don't show by default, but based off of what the user's doing, they show. So if you're working inside of Excel and you have tables, you'll see an extra set of tabs that display only when you're inside of a table, and Outlook has things like that too. So let's go ahead and scroll down here to Outlook, and we see these guys. We see things like smart tab set, smart art tools, tab set, chart tools, all that. So I'll select tab set picture tools, and this will limit our context to picture tools. And when I say limited, I mean what we did before with setting it to display with mail items, the Explorer item, and contact items. That's fine, but now we've actually filtered it or limited the context further by using this context tab, and it will only show up for those scenarios that we've defined with the ribbons property, but now only when we're dealing with picture tools. And so having set this property to tab set picture tools, I'll demo it just real quick. So let's build the solution, and now let's move to opening Outlook again. And what I'll do, I'll create a new email, and let's insert a picture into the body of the email. And I'm just going to take my sample pictures that are available as part of my Windows 7. And now that I have this selected, notice if I were to scale the image down, we see that the image is the currently selected bit of copy or what have you, content inside of the body of my new mail item. And we see up here in Picture Tools the normal format tab that we see related to pictures, but then also our context sensitivity tab shows up for us automatically, which is a nice slick tool. Makes it very easy to then piggyback on top of these context sensitive ribbons that Microsoft supports by default. So I'll close this, say no, close Outlook, and let's go back and do another demo. Before we move away from the ribbon tabs, I want to show one more item that I think is really nice and interesting, is the ability to really change within the tab depending on the context. So I have a tab or a custom tab, and I have elements on it like these buttons. I can change these depending on the context. So first off, I have the tab that has a context of, let's look here, of Outlook Explorer, Outlook Contact, and then Outlook Mail Compose and Mail Read. So these are the times that this tab will display. But within that, I can come and say this sample button, if we look at it, its ribbons obviously are going to match the same values as the tab, but I can change them. And I can say that, for instance, I want to remove that button from the contact type, and for this demo I'll change its caption. So we'll say Mail and Explorer button. And let's add another button, and I'll change its button to Contacts button, and we'll make it large as well. Great. And I also need to change its context so that it only shows as part of the Outlook Contact. So now I'll build, and we'll run Outlook, and we should see these buttons hide and display based off of the appropriate context in which they should hide and display. So we see the context sensitivity with the Mail Button Explorer, and then also if we move to the contacts, we will see the Mail Button Explorer as we should, but then if I open up a new contact item, we'll go to the context sensitivity and we see the contacts button. So nice that we can build out a tab and then hide and show different user interface elements within that tab based on the context of what's going on inside of Outlook. So let's close this and let's move on to advanced form regions. For advanced form regions, we need to add the Outlook Forms Manager, and I'll do that from the toolbar inside of the Add-in Designer. And this will allow us, we have a new designer as well, and we can add a forms collection in here that will allow us to then specify a task pane class name that we see right here as the form for this collection item. The problem here is I need to actually add the task pane. So we'll do add new item. And inside of the installed templates, we have the add-in express items. Inside of Outlook, I can choose an ADX Outlook form, and I will change this to just be the name to demo form, and click the add button. Now, once again, I'm in the code view. I don't really want to see that. I want to select inside of Solution Explorer the demo form and say View Designer, which I can then, I'll open up my toolbox so I can add something to it, like, I don't know, a big button. A big button. That. Great. Put it right here in the middle. And I'll change its text property to click me. Great. So I now have this demo form that I can use. I'll save it and I'll close it because this is really the only customization I want to make to it. And I'm going to minimize my toolbox. Now I'll select the ADX OL Forms Manager 1, and in the designer down below I can select the collection that I added. I also have the capability to select the Forms Manager, and then inside the Properties window I can go to the Items Collection and I can work with collection items there, like add and remove, all that. I'll just come back right here and use the new feature. If you have the latest and greatest build from Add-in Express for Add-in Express 2010, I can just click the Add Collection Item button, and here we go. Now, when I select it, you might think you can change some values here in this grid view. You really can't. These are display only. So I will select the collection item, and in my properties window now, I have all the properties for that collection item. Form regions have really two main sets of, or main categories of properties, where we have the Explorer properties and the Inspector properties along with the miscellaneous. But really what we're trying to define are, where will this user interface element display? Will it display in the Explorer windows or the Inspector windows, or really both? And in this case, we will do both. So let's expand Explorer, and if we look, we'll see that this is drag and drop. I'm not worried about that. But the Explorer item types, so I want it to display under Mail and Contact. We'll just stay with those two examples, and then down under Inspector, we can do the same thing. Inspector item types. So let's say Mail and Contact. So we've defined Mail and Contacts as the two contextual items that this form will display in. But now what we need to do is display the form class name that we want to display when that's the active context. And so we see that context sensitivity demo form being the name of demo form up here, and then context sensitivity being the name of our project. So I'll select that, and we'll also see in the designer context sensitivity demo form. So for Explorers and Inspectors, this form will display when we have Mail and Contact types. Having specified these properties, we still need to define where the advanced form region will display within the Inspector and the Explorer. So in both, we see Explorer layout and Inspector layout. And starting with the Explorer layout, we're going to choose the bottom sub pane as the location for our advanced form region. And let's do the same thing for the Inspector layout, the bottom sub pane. So now we've defined what Outlook item types are the active context, and then we've also specified whether or not it's the Explorer and the Inspector, those two types, when they're what windows it's contextually relevant. So let's go ahead and build the add-in once again, and now I'll open up Outlook 2010, and we see, all right, we see our Click Me button right here in the bottom sub pane of the Explorer window. And let me move to Contacts, and also too we see it relevant right here. If I move to Calendar, it will hide. It's no longer available. Let me go back to the Contacts window, and we'll do a new contact where we'll see as well our advanced form region down at the bottom sub pane. Now that shows us how to make it contextually relevant and filter the context using the Explorer layout and item types. But there's another type that we can utilize, which is the folder name. And actually, I don't mean type. I actually mean a property. So the folder name property is another way that we can add some context to what we're doing with the user interface elements. In this case, I can put the path of a folder inside of my Outlook file system. I can just put that path, the string name, in the folder name property, and wherever that, anytime I'm in that folder within Outlook, then the user elements will display, or the advanced form region will display. So let's open up Outlook real quick and add a new folder that we'll use for a folder name context sensitivity. And here what I want to do is right click on the personal folders, and I'll say new folder, and I want to name it context sensitive. Now to demonstrate that already I have mail and contact items as the context, I want to change this folder type to be task items to show that it doesn't matter, as long as this folder name is in the path, then it's going to be relevant or part of the context. And so if I look at the path, it's personal folders and then context sensitive. So that'll be our path name. And I'm going to copy and paste personal folders and say OK. Close Outlook. Now, since I copied it with a Control V there, I can go in my folder name property and I can say paste. So personal folders, and then I need a backslash and the name of that folder, context sensitive. Now I can build and reopen Outlook and navigate to that folder, and even though it's a task types folder, the advanced form region will display. So there we have it there, and then if I do a new task, we see it there. But if I go to the normal tasks folder, we'll see that it disappears. So it's kind of fun. I can click task, context sensitive tasks. I see my form region. Now you see it, now you don't. And then same thing, if I'm in the task folder and I do new task, then that advanced form region would not display. So yet another way that we can make our elements hide and disappear based on what's going on inside of Outlook. Let's do a short demo that shows how to take advantage of context sensitivity with previous versions of Outlook. So what I want to do is target Outlook 2003, and we'll build a command bar for the Explorer window and the Inspector window that's relevant only, or contextually relevant only, in appointments or in appointment folders. And what we'll do is use a couple of the objects up here in the Visual Designer in the toolbar. We have the ADX OL Explorer command bar right there, and then if I skip one and move over, the ADX OL Inspector command bar. And both of these work the same in that, let me go back to the Explorer, and if we look in the Properties window, what we have folder name, and just like with the ribbon, I could input the path to a folder, and whatever we do would only work in that folder. Also too, if we look at the item types, this is the main difference between working with ribbons, is here we'll select which item type for the Explorer and the Explorer only. And I want to set it as appointment types. That's great. And I will now select the ADX OL Inspector command bar, and I'll do the same thing. So item types being appointments. And I'll disable mail. And we can go ahead and add a control. And I will select this button. And these buttons as well have contextual sensitivity. And I want them to display with appointments. Now let me change the caption to be Explorer Demo button. And we'll select the ADX OL Inspector command bar, and we'll add a button to it as well. Change its caption to Inspector Demo button. Whoops. And we'll set its inspector type to appointment, and we should be good to go. There are two other objects that are worth mentioning here. They work the same. The ADX OL Explorer main menu and the ADX OL Inspector main menu. You drop them on the designer and configure them the same way with the item types that define when they are contextually relevant. So what I want to do, we will build the solution, and then I'll go ahead and install this on another system of mine, not this one since this one has Office 2010. I'll do one that has Office 2003 on it, and I'll demo how it works there. So here I am in my Office 2003 system, and what I will do is I will open up Microsoft Outlook 2003. I've already installed the add-in that we were creating in my Office 2010 system. And when it opens up, we should also see the advanced form region in the bottom subpane of the inbox, and we do. So there's the click me. But what I want to do is navigate to the calendar folder so that we can see our Explorer command bar button, and we see it there with the Explorer demo button. And if I were to open up a new contact or a new appointment, then we'll see our inspector demo button just as we'd expect. And there are a couple other features here that are worth mentioning. One is really the version neutrality that is really taking place. And I guess the two features both involve version neutrality. One, let me open up the appointment again, is that you're not seeing any runtime errors or anything like that involved with the ribbon that you would see in Office 2007 and Office 2010, at least for inspector items. And then Office 2010 for Explorer and inspector items, the ribbon would be involved. So Add-in Express handles this for us, knows that we're in Office 2003 and displays only a command bar ribbon and doesn't attempt to create, a command bar for the inspector, and doesn't attempt to create a ribbon or anything like that. The other feature related to version neutrality would be, if I go back to Mail, we'll see the advanced form region displayed here that is showing inside of an inbox. And not to mention too that we're seeing something that really wasn't even supported in Office 2003, and that's form regions in and of themselves. So some nice features there, not to mention just or not only limited to context sensitivity. As you've seen in this video, context sensitivity makes it very easy to dynamically change the way you display custom user interface elements with Outlook in all versions of Outlook from 2000 to 2010. So in this video I covered customizing the ribbon, adding advanced form regions, and also Explorer command bars and Inspector command bars. I also made brief mention of the Explorer and Inspector main menus, and there's also one other feature called folder property pages that also can take advantage of context sensitivity. Those topics are covered a bit more in a blog post by Peter that's available on the Add-in Express blogs. All you need to do is go to the main Add-in Express website and then click the blogs link on the far right hand side. Well, that's it for this video. I hope you dive in deeper and learn even more about this and utilize it in your solutions.